Hi guys, I'm Kristen. Welcome back to my channel. So I wanted to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about A Deadly Education, specifically if you should or shouldn't read this book. Later this month on September 28th, one of my most anticipated books for the year is coming out, and that is The Last Graduate by Naomi Novik. I personally really love A Deadly Education. I do think it has its problems. There was a lot of controversy with this book. There was a lot of love and there was a lot of hate. So I want to go into more specific details about the book without doing spoilers to help you decide if you might or might not like this book, with lots of time left still to read it. I will talk about the controversy and some of the more problematic elements of the book in a little bit, but just to talk about the setup first and why this book kind of had such a mixed reaction, even from people who weren't delving into the problematic bits. And that is because this book is very different from Naomi Novik's other more popular books or more well-known books, Uprooted and Spinning Silver. The writing style is really different, the characters are very different, the setup and the world are very different from both Uprooted and Spinning Silver, which are more fairy tale retellings. This is a dark, magical school where the school is somewhat sentient and problems have gone wrong such that there are actively kind of monsters within the school trying to kill the kids. So right out of the gate, if you went into this book expecting something like Uprooted or Spinning Silver, you were going to be let down. There are no teachers in the school, it's just the students, and the school itself is kind of sentient and provides the kids with all of their schedules and where they need to be and textbooks and all of those things. But something has gone wrong within some of the school's protective measures, and some monsters, or they're called mals in this book, are able to slip through, and so these mals are actively around and trying to kill the kids at all times. The other way that this book is a little bit different is that we are joining in Elle's story in her third year of school. So we're not learning the school as she's learning it in her first year through her eyes. She's telling us about the school. And the writing style here is very different, and I'll talk about that as well. Our main character, Elle, is a really big loner. She is not someone who is liked or really even tolerated by most of the other school students. She is a little bit more of a grumpy, abrasive, quick to say something negative or push people away sort of a character. Essentially, Elle is destined, or there is this prophecy about Elle becoming a really powerful dark sorceress. But she was raised by her very hippie, free-loving mother, and she is actively trying not to become a dark, evil sorceress. The whole story starts when Elle is sort of thrown into the midst with this other character, Orion, who is a boy in her year, and he is more of the hero savior type. His affinity with magic is killing all of these mals or monsters around, whereas Elle's affinity for magic is mass destruction. So I do want to really quickly address the controversy and some of the more problematic elements in this book. The controversy was around kind of one specific moment in the book, or a reference to dreadlocks. And then there were more other perceived possible problematic things throughout the book that caused a lot of controversy. There is a discussion about dreadlocks where it sort of gives the connotation that dreadlocks are not clean, and it plays into some negative stereotypes. Naomi Novik has addressed this. She addressed it right away on Twitter and apologized. She explained that it was added in after all of her secondary beta readers. I personally have my own ideas on why I think that this was added in last minute based on what was happening in the moment in that book, but I absolutely will not take away from the fact that this was what was written was not great, and that it can play into the negative stereotypes with dreadlocks. But there is a lot of other much more informed people and own voices commentary out there on this incident, so I encourage you to go find that as well. Within this book, The kids that are attending this school are coming from all over the world. This isn't just Hogwarts where it's like kids from the UK. This is literally kids from all over the world. I think that Naomi Novik was trying to be extremely diverse, and I just think that her execution was not 100%. I think that it's better that authors are trying to be more inclusive and diverse, and I think that there are just going to be some bumps along the way. It sounds like Naomi Novik is someone who does have additional readers and is trying to get more points of view, but obviously everyone is going to react differently to different things. Something that was coming up somewhat frequently around the time when this book was released was the fact that the main character Elle is half Indian, but she isn't connected with her Indian heritage whatsoever. And this has a legitimate reason that is written in the book. She was raised by her British mother. Her Indian father died before she was born, and there is a reason why she does not live with her Indian family or is connected to that culture. I am not of Elle's culture or ethnicity, and so I have included some own voices, reviews of this book down below. Some people who do address the issues and some of them who don't. I definitely recommend checking them out if you're looking for a different perspective on this. I think if you go into this book looking for issues with a fine-tooth comb, you're probably going to find some. I think that it is going to be an inherent risk in any book written by an author attempting to make something as diverse as this was trying to be. And while I don't doubt that it wasn't the author's intention doesn't negate how something is going to make someone feel or how it affects them. I think that everyone is going to have to make their own decisions on how they feel about each of these various elements. Okay, so getting into some of the more specific things that I think either you might like or you might really dislike to help you decide on whether or not you should read this book. First of which, plot. There is not a lot going on in this book. There is a problem or a conflict that starts to develop, and I think that would happen at around maybe the 2/3, 75% mark. So it is quite late in the book, and it does kind of like wrap up really quickly. And so if a slow plot or no plot book really bothers you, this is probably not the book for you. It is much more of a character-driven book, particularly in Elle as like a teenage girl who's going through a lot. Elle really is a big loner. She does not have any friends at the beginning of this book, and she has some people who are sort of acquaintances who somewhat tolerate her. Because Elle has such a surface level relationship with the majority of the other characters in this book, the development of a lot of the side characters isn't intense. It really does focus on just a couple of them, and a lot of the other side characters are sort of like small stereotypes, sort of, or like one-dimensional figures. And that's simply because Elle doesn't know them very well. The character moments in this book are very much so teenager in high school who doesn't fit in, who doesn't feel understood, who has no friends, and who is sort of struggling and just really wants to live because of this whole dark school, and also be understood, or at least have people see her for who she really is. Her budding friendship situation with Orion is also really lovely because there is a little bit of some parallels going on within their lives, even though they are extremely different people. And just all of that is very, very relatable high school moments. So if you're interested in that, I would absolutely think about reading this. The writing style is also something that was very, very different and quite distinct, and could be a love it, hate it, or tolerate it sort of an issue. This book is exclusively written from Elle's perspective, and she is sort of talking to you, the reader, not only telling you what is happening, but also telling you little anecdotes. This does not sound like Uprooted. It does not sound like Spinning Silver. It doesn't sound like anything else. It is a little bit like Stream of Consciousness, but not quite exactly. How I think about this book is like, you know that person who, when they're telling you a story, they get really sidetracked with other stories to help explain this one thing in the current like main A storyline, and they go on a whole other tangent. Reading this book is a little bit like that. The world building is almost exclusively exposition or info dumps, but told through the way of anecdotes. And this could be everything from explaining what kind of monster this particular mall is. It could be explaining why kids don't want to go to the storeroom late at night. It could be a whole tangent on the history of the school itself and why the problem is that it is. And a lot of the times it also feeds back to some of the themes that I will talk about in a bit as well. The problem is that sometimes these anecdotes happen right in the middle of action sequences. So the action moments themselves are actually quite short, but they seem really long because there is a whole lot of exposition and anecdotes thrown into the middle of it. I did find some of the anecdotes to drag a little bit. I didn't always feel like they were necessary, but it was quite distinctive. And again, I think it's just, this is who Elle is, and this is the way she's choosing to tell her story. But when I hear other readers talk about the fact that they didn't like the writing style, I completely understand. It is slow, it is a lot of exposition, but it's done in sort of like a storytelling way. And it's just kind of like being in the mind of this teenage girl. Where this book shines is the character work that I previously mentioned, but also in the themes of classism and privilege. More and more, Elle starts tailoring the anecdotes to exemplify and to highlight all of the that is happening within this world in regards to classism, privilege, and how that is affecting these kids' lives. Their chance of surviving on a day-to-day basis within this school, and even how it historically impacted the creation of the school and why certain kids are allowed into the school in the first place. I think this book is a scathing critique on privilege and classism, and I think it was done extremely well to great effect, to the point at times where your blood is boiling. You are so angry along with Elle about what is happening in this school. But as I said, there are some pros, there are definitely some cons to this book, or some things that might turn off some readers. So I hope that this helped to break down what the experience of reading this book is like from a structural standpoint, as well as thematically, to see if you might be interested in picking this book up. You still have time to read A Deadly Education before the second book in the series, The Last Graduate, comes out on September 28th. And trust me, when you finish A Deadly Education, if you choose to read it, you are going to want to pick up The Last Graduate right away. It's not exactly a cliffhanger ending, it's more of like a bomb dropping at the end of this book. I have also heard from advanced readers that The Last Graduate ends in a similar manner, and I am both excited and terrified to be picking this up. If you've read A Deadly Education, I would love to hear what you thought of it down below. Even if you didn't like it, that's okay, just maybe don't like scream about it. Because I just read it recently and oh, those kids. Anyway, that's it for me today, guys. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye.